Hello, AP students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 9 Psychological Development. How do psychologists explain development? So, how do psychologists explain development? Well, developmental psychology is the psychological specialty that studies how organisms continue to change over time as a result of biological and environmental influences, such as nature and nurture. And the nature and nurture interaction. When we talk about this issue, this is a long-standing discussion over the relative importance of nature, which is heredity, innate factors, and nurturing, which is your environment, and the influence over behavior and mental processes. Interaction is that process by which forces work together or influence each other as the interaction between the forces of heredity and environment. And one way we can look at this are twin studies. Identical twins are basically a set of twins that start life as a single fertilized egg, which later splits into two distinct individuals. Identical twins have exactly the same genes. When we talk about fraternal twins, this is a pair that start life as two separate fertilized eggs, and that happened just to share a womb. Fertilized twins, on average, have about 50% of the genetic makeup in common, but this is where we could see a situation where we have a boy and a girl that share the same womb. They're not exactly the same, but they share a little bit of the same genetic makeup. Information on twin studies can provide a lot of data. Over the years, these studies have provided valuable information on genetics of mental and behavioral disorders such as alcoholism, Alzheimer's disease, schizophrenia, depression, and panic disorders. Adoption studies are another way that we can kind of take a look at that relationship between nature and nurture. And adoption studies help compare characteristics of adopted children to those of their biological and adopted families. And this allows scientists to separate the effects of heredity and environment. This research has revealed genetic contributions to a variety of psychological characteristics, such as intelligence, sexual orientation, temperament, and impulsive behaviors. Gradual and abrupt change. Continuity. This is a view where the perspective that the development is gradual and continuous, as opposed to discontinuity view, which sees change as, for the most part, not being so continual. The discontinuity view, this perspective of development proceeds in an uneven or discontinuous fashion as opposed to the continuity view. It's abrupt. It's like burst of changes. So you can look at it as a couple different ways. The continual change is, kind of the line that kind of gradually goes upwards. Everything kind of flows at the same developmental stage, whereas discontinuity, we have like growth spurts, and then we kind of plateau, and then we have another spurt, and then we plateau. Truth is, we probably have a little bit of both of these as far as how we grow, maybe in our physical sense, but it also can be somewhat in our cognitive sense as well. So we look at developmental stages as a way to kind of help us understand both of these views. These are periods of life initiated by significant transactions or changes in physical or psychological functionings. Specific abilities such as walking and talking, abstract reasoning, appear at specific ages of life periods because different developmental processes come into play. People go through the same stages in the same order as we develop. The psychological trait in our genes, heredity in combination with the environment can determine things like our personality traits, our temperament, interest and abilities. Heredity acts in combination with the environment. Heredity alone determines things like clinical disorders, such that are associated with genetic abnormalities. An example of this would be like Huntington's disease, which is kind of appears a little bit like a form of dementia, like Alzheimer's, but it usually hits people at a relatively young age, usually in the prime of their lives. And it's a very debilitating disorder if one happens to have it, that is caused by a mutation on one of the genes. Depression, schizophrenia, panic disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, antisocial personality disorders, and Tourette's syndrome are also kind of hereditary kind of items as well. Thank you very much.